am Louise Nelson, and I'm 90 years old. I've lived here in Knoxville for 45, maybe 50 years, off and on, because my husband was in the service for 4 or 5 years, so we were gone. I have a lot of interest in life. I love life. I play golf. I play bridge. I love to decorate for parties and things, and I love my church and my church work. And I have a wonderful family. I have 2 sons and 2 great daughters-in-laws, and I have 3 grandchildren. One of them is a minister in Kentucky, and another one is getting his doctorate in theology. He goes to Aberdeen, Scotland to do his doctorate. And then I have a granddaughter who is, she has her doctorate in physical therapy, but she also is part-time missionary to Africa. And she has, sadly, and 2 or 3 years ago, she acquired a strange thing of TB. It's very, very rare. It's a very rare TB. So she's been in Vanderbilt at Nashville for now the last 2 years and been unable to work. But she's happy, and we know that this probably God has another plan for her, because she loved Africa and wants to go back. But maybe this plan is to help find a cure for this dreaded disease that takes so many lives.
Right.
And I have family in Illinois, the sisters, all the family we have now. My sister's younger than I, and we're very close. My husband died 7 years ago, and he was very interested and happy that we could find out more about my family. Excuse me, they came up from Virginia. The discerners came when they landed. They were French Huguenots.
Okay.
That's where they came from, And they came up to Virginia, to Union County. And the father was sawing trees down one day, and one fell on him and killed him. And John at that time was working in the mines, and so he wanted the family to come over to Fraterville to be near him and for the boys to have some work. And that's, how they got to that area. And so I know nothing. I know George was, what, 13? Was he that old? I've forgotten it.
I think I read 14
Maybe
somewhere.
When he was killed, and he was almost out of the mine. He apparently had been working closer out for some reason or other, and he was just about out. Now, there have been notes left by a lot of people, a lot of the miners and all. And I want to tell you how I feel about this. Now, I understand that there was a note from George, and he said because Vic Wheels, a writer for the Sentinel years ago, had an article that George had left a note saying, "Please leave my toys to my friends." Now, that note is somewhere with someone, but I know not who. And anyway, I feel like, and my sister, we've thought this over a lot, and we feel sad when we think about that they were smothered to death, that gas had killed them. But here's the thing, there were no notes from them, but we knew, and we know that they could write because that was in the census. So we feel, and we hope this is true, that they were killed instantly, and they did not have to suffer over a length of time. So that gives us something happier to feel about. I can picture them getting up and eating their breakfast and then going out to work with their lunch boxes, and with them all meeting up the boys along a different way, because they all lived in different, some of them lived at home with their mother. And they went to the mine. It was dark, and they went back into the bowels of that mine, and they were in that dark all day long. And when they came out that night, it was dark again. And then they walked home, and it was the same thing. And I love sunshine. And I can't imagine, that they were in the dark all this time. But they were the wives then that took sort of care of the men for me. I could picture it, a happy happening. And then the women, I thought about, they were left. As soon as the men left, then they had to build the fires. They had to keep, they had to go draw water. I don't know how far, but, and then they had to do laundries, and the laundries were done with washboard. And at the meantime, if they had children, they had to take care of their children. So their days were very full, and they had no time for fun, but what could they do? They had no radio, no television, anything like that, and they just sort of had to entertain themselves. But it was work. It was entertainment, because as soon as they finished the morning things, then they were preparing a meal for that night when the husbands came home. Now this is how I feel.
Evelyn Elizabeth Discern was
My mother.
your mother, and
Yes.
Lula Harris was your grandmother, correct?
That's right. Mhm.
Okay. And you said that Elizabeth didn't know very much about Lula, correct?
No,
Okay.
she did not, because see, after her father was killed, her mother, like all the women, had no skills or anything, so they remarried. And she remarried, and she had 3 children, by her second husband. So my mother had those step sisters and brothers, whom she, when they sent her to after her mother died, I would assume her grandfather, or her father, because stepfather could not probably care for her too. I have no idea what occurred during that time. But they did send her to Illinois, and that's where she met my father, was in Illinois. And then she was married down. They came here and married because my aunt moved back town. She went to live with an aunt on her mother's side. That's what occurred when she went to Illinois. There was a man here in Knoxville. We had a relative that was a colonel in the Army, and he had this friend, Colonel Tom Moody. He lived over on Magnolia. He wanted to adopt my mother, but the family they wanted to keep her in the family. So that's how her story developed. So she knew nothing except what was told to her by her aunt. And I'm not sure how much her aunt really knew, but she did feel that, which I thought was sad, that the Discerns, they didn't care anything about her, anything. But that's so untrue. I went through my notes, and there were things I did note that I did feel this way about seeing the family, seeing them as a family, not as an individual that was gone, but seeing them as a family. And I know they were happy. They were young. They had this baby, and that's how I want to think of it. This has been such a great thing to find out more about this family, because my children are very interested, and my grandchildren. I have greats now, 3 greats, and I think this is so important that they know what went on before them.
Yeah.
That the hardships, which at that time I don't think they felt it was a hardship. They came to America. Those families came to America for not things or stuff, but for a life for their families, so they could have a good life and be educated. So I want my family to realize, and I think they do now, just how fortunate they are that they had ancestors who were hard workers and good people.